So, sir, from being as I mentioned, being the youngest captain, and you still hold that record. So, life comes in goods and bads, right? So now let's talk about, if you don't mind, let's talk about the bad that happened. So, a young Tatenda Taibu, he took a stand. He stood for the good. He stood for the right against a difficult regime, to put it lightly, right? And you decided to retire because
Mm,
there wasn't fair equity being paid to the cricketers. And from there to something which we haven't, which like normal folk like me wouldn't have ever imagined. Like, this is like a movie plot, right? Suddenly you are running around saving your life
mm,
from the Mugabe regime.
mm.
So could you like, could you just elaborate on onto what happened, and like what preceded that situation, and how did it come about, and then how were you running for your life? In
Mm,
fact, you had to take asylum in countries like Bangladesh, if I'm not wrong.
mm. You've got most of it. You've got most of it right. Um, just coming back, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think my record was broken. I think recently. I think
Is it
it
okay?
was Rashid Khan who
Right.
took that
Right.
record. Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
Anyway, just to get back to the point about what transpired, the bad that happened during my career. So there I was young, and me taking over captaincy, I did not stand with his streak, because I didn't know that his streak was planning to take a stand against the board. So eventually to me it was, you know you have not involved me in this points that you're very valid points, but I have not been part of this discussion, so I'm not going to be part, of this. So that's how I declined with Streak. So, however, fast forward a year later, I'm starting to realize several of these things that he had also mentioned. So I decided the right thing for me was to also make a stand.
Right.
Though I knew that that stand was going to be a difficult stand, when Heat Streak made the stand, it was easily turned racial,
Right.
because most of the players, if not all the players, were white.
Correct.
Now, the board what administration simply did was they said, no, this issue is a racial matter. And then it created the whole issue to become a racial matter. Now, when you're talking about a race matter playing around feelings and emotions for people, and when someone is being tempered, when someone's emotions are being tempered with, they don't think clearly, right?
Right.
So it was simply turned racial, and then case away. Now, when I then made the stand, it was now a different stand. And I'm now saying, no, 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 this administration is not running cricket the correct way for forward for years to come. If nothing is done, yes, we will play and we will continue to play, but we'll continue. Now, that has not needed a rocket scientist, because look at how Zimbabwe is playing now,
Right.
played then. So we've continuously gone down,
Absolutely.
and nothing has changed. There have been a few changes here and there, but nothing really has actually changed for the organized juice good cricketers that will be. So that unfortunately is what transpired. So when I made the stand, it became it couldn't be turned racial, so it was turned. Now
So,
I
so
was
sorry, sir.
I
Your
was driving
question
and
was,
I got a call.
Your correction was here. So if, you said if it couldn't be turned racial, then it was, what was it turned to?
It, it had to be turned somewhere, and it was turned political.
Okay.
So, so I was driving the one call from a gentleman who went to introduce me to the vice president at the time. So I went in as president, and I had announced to the world that I'm now resigning, and I am going to leave Zimbabwe Cricket. Now, as you mentioned earlier, you said I was the boy in Zimbabwe. That is correct. Now, every young kid, every young black boy that was growing up wanted to be a Tatenda Taibu,
Right.
because I was making a name in cricket, and kids were starting to have a liking in the sport. Now, the vice president wanted to know why all of a sudden, um, you know, this cricketer was making headlines to leave the sport. So I told her what was going on in the administration. I told her that cricket was not going to, the future of cricket was, and she said, look, this is very important. I'm about to go to a funeral. This is very important. She summoned me to the governor of the country. His name is Dr. Gono. He's no longer the governor, but he was the governor then. So I went to meet Dr. Gono, and I started speaking to him. And then he said, young man, speak with so much conviction, and it's like you are 100% sure these accusations, but you have not brought in one copy of evidence. You are just speaking, from your heart. I said, sir, you've got a team of expertise that can do investigations, and you'll be able to find out more than I will ever be able to tell you. And he said, so you called a gentleman called Chiremba. He was the head of the CIOs, which is the investigation officers. And then they put protection for me, and they asked him, or they asked him to be in charge of those investigations. Fast forward 2 weeks later, I have another meeting with Dr. Gono, and this time he had a file this week of all the accusations that I had put forward, plus a lot more other things that were done illegally by Zimbabwe Cricket. However, he then said, promise me that you are not going to go, but we can't really do anything to the people that you want to go. So it asked for certain administrators to be out of office. So now, when I knew that there was definitely something more powerful that was going on, something that I would not understand, I was just there was higher powers that we're discussing, and so I could just take that, because in other words, he had said, yes, you were right, but we are not going to take action. That's how it registered to me. That's how I interpreted it. So what I then did was I continued to go to Bangladesh. Before I went to Bangladesh, several other things had started to happen. We were getting threatened. We were, my wife got threatened. We couldn't use our phones. We had cars following us. There were cars that would be parked outside our gate, things like that. And then my wife, then the worst now was when my wife almost got kidnapped. So Loveness almost got kidnapped.
God.
And now that was really, really scary for us. And that's when I decided, you know what, we can continue with this, but without any freedom. Yes, we've got guards at the house. Yes, we've got protection from the governor and the vice president. But it was the other vice president. There were two vice presidents. We're getting protection from the one vice president. And then it was the other vice president that wanted to kidnap my wife.
Shit, gosh.
So now, when that happened now, we thought, no, no, no. You know what? Let's leave it. And that's when we had to go to Bangladesh. That's why Bangladesh stays really close to my heart, because whenever I think about Bangladesh, I think because of what happened for me during that period.
Okay, so it's so kind of you to, like, I'm sure it's not easy, but to open up to our audience and people in India here, it's I can understand from your voice how hard it would have been. And I can't even imagine like what you would have gone through, like just seeing so many highs and then just the absolute low.